Some pro-life advocates mistakenly assume that once a pregnant woman has chosen life for her baby, the battle has been won. However, the truth is that for mothers living in poverty, especially generational poverty, the battle has only begun. These women lack resources, support, finances, and hope. While pregnancy centers succeed in leading women to choose life and providing aid through the baby's first year, unfortunately, impoverished mothers are then left to fight a solitary battle for the life of their child every day. That's why today we're going to be talking about hope for breaking the cycle of generational poverty. Welcome back to your hope-filled perspective, where it's always our goal to restore hope, renew minds, and empower listeners to live in their God-given identity. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Bengtson, and I'm thrilled that you've chosen to spend a few minutes of your week with us. Today, we're talking about hope for breaking the cycle of generational poverty. My guest today is Marisol Rodriguez, who's the co-founder of Renew Life Center, which seeks to pick up where pregnancy resource centers leave off in order to support women and help them overcome generational poverty. Born to a single mother and raised in generational poverty, Marisol has a deep experiential understanding of the women she serves. She's worked in pregnancy resource ministries for over 20 years, first as a volunteer and then as an urban center director. She's the parent of 4 adult children and lives with her husband in New Jersey. I'm so excited to welcome you to the program, Marisol.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
What I have learned in 30 years as a neuropsychologist and 5 years as a podcast host is that frequently our ministries are birthed out of our own needs, trials, and experiences. How is
Yes.
that true for you?
Yeah. It's funny because I didn't even recognize that. It took me a while to figure that out, but I had this deep compassion for single mothers and specifically those who have gone through an unplanned pregnancy, and and they're suffering really afterwards that I started to notice. So, and then it took me a while, actually, a conversation with a friend that connected it to my childhood, being raised by a single mother, and a mother who probably all her pregnancies were unexpected, yeah, and I did not know that it really stemmed from that. So I would agree with that statement.
I think that's true for so many of us. It's kind
Hmm.
of like God starts working and starts birthing the ministry, and then we
Hmm.
kind of look back and went, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But I love that because my listeners know, and I say it frequently, that God never wastes our pain.
Oh, absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
your advocacy for women is a way for God to redeem what
Yes.
you have been through, what your mother has been through. So
Yes.
I'm curious, Marisol, as someone who grew up in generational poverty, can you shed some light on how it affects a woman's mindset and perspective, especially regarding motherhood?
Yeah, that's an excellent question because I think that most people don't understand really what a trap poverty is, and it's all encompassing, So, and we have these ideas that they can do better. Maybe they choose not to or don't have the motivation to, but that couldn't be further from the truth for a lot of women. So, how it affects your motherhood is that because you don't see a future for yourself, you often don't see a future for your children. And you're raising your children. Like I was recently having a conversation with somebody, and I lovingly called my mother the dream killer because aspiration and dreaming, I'm like, what do you, it's like it wasn't part of the picture. It was like we have to eat, we have to work, we have to put food on the table. So that mindset of poverty of this is what it is, this is what it will always will be, it'll never be more, not only inhibits you from things that bring hope and a future to just survival mode. So it's a constant crisis of survival mode, and that's your mindset raising your children. Is you're teaching them how to survive. You're not teaching them how to think outside of that. And it really that spills into so many areas of life, not just the ability to dream and have hope, but the ability to plan
Mhm.
to schedule, the ability to do so many other things are born from that. So it's very limiting. It's a very limiting mindset.
Well, and if we look at it from the field of psychology, really what you're talking about is a very truncated
Mhm.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
needs are focused on just surviving. All
Hmm.
the other needs don't get met if you can't meet those higher level needs. Will you just walk us back for just a minute, though, for those who are listening and who maybe have never heard the term of generational poverty, help us
Hmm.
understand what that really means.
Yeah, generational poverty means that you come from a background of poverty of three generations or more. So that means that your parents grew up in poverty, your grandparents grew up in poverty, and your great grandparents grew up in poverty. And that is significantly different from what we call situational poverty, because situational poverty means that a situation threw you into poverty, a death, a layoff from your job, a severe illness. It throws you into poverty. And that poverty tends to be temporary and it's based on a circumstance. But when you come from, and to get out of that type of poverty is a way different experience because usually when you're there, you already have contacts, networks, education, some kind of career that you could use to do what people always say to people in poverty. You always say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right?
I hate
So
that
those
phrase.
people, I hate it too, because that phrase comes in handy for people in situational poverty because they have the bootstraps, so to speak.
Gotcha.
That's your education, your previous career, etc. When you come from three generations of poverty, you come from generations of people who have never created a resume, right? Have maybe never finished school, right? Or have very limited education. So that population of people, you can't say that phrase because they don't have the bootstraps, right?
Right.
So it's an entrenched poverty. And what's happening, the same way we spoke earlier, and I said that, it's a limiting belief and it's all in survival mode. Now you come from three generations of survival mode. Okay. So the only information passed on generation to generation is the information you need to survive. And just with that information alone, you're not going to get ahead in life. That does not equip you for a successful future.
The pro-life movement is thrilled anytime a woman chooses life instead of
Mm-hmm.
abortion.
Mm-hmm.
But you point out that there's a lot more work to be done after this decision. What else does a woman face during pregnancy and in the early childhood years, particularly a woman who's dealing with generational poverty?
You know what? I think the main thing that comes to my mind is isolation,
Mm,
because if she was in a crisis pregnancy, most likely she had the people around her were telling her to terminate the pregnancy.
right.
It's going to ruin your future. It's going to ruin your career choices. It's going to do all these horrible things to you. So she's very isolated in that decision. And another thing I like to point out is that, even though my book is titled Beyond Her Yes, it's not just one yes. This woman has to say yes to life with every month that passes, with every hardship she confronts, because especially in states like mine, New Jersey, where abortion is legal through all 9 months, she can change her mind at any time. So it's like we have to guide her into saying yes multiple times. And so isolation is one, support, positive support is another thing that she needs. And what is very important to me and near and dear to my heart is that I don't want a woman's choice for life to be this or that, this baby or my future. I want it to be both for
Oh,
them. I want it to be this baby and your future. And that's what Renew Life Center brings to the table. It's like, your first choice of yes is fantastic. Now let's follow up with more choices that are good, life-giving, life-enhancing choices that will not make it a this or that. It'll make it a baby and a future and a career and an education. And that's what's very meaningful to us. That's what we want to see happen.
I think it's important to point out that many single mothers find that government assistance is not enough. So, would you elaborate on why that is and where can women go for additional support?
Yeah, there's a misconception that, they live high on the hog, as they say, on government assistance. It's like, oh, this money's coming in and they're good. And it couldn't be further from the truth. And again, I speak from my state of New Jersey, where benefits are very limited, they're very small, and it's almost punitive. So as she begins to do better, she starts to lose her benefits at a faster rate than the money she's making. I hope that makes, you understand what I'm saying. It's like, so she gets a job. Let's say a woman is getting like $700 a month in food stamps, and she gets a job and she gets a 50 cents an hour raise. That little amount of money may be just enough to get her above their line, whatever that measuring line is. And now she's going to lose $350 in food stamps. So what she's earning doesn't match the loss. And that's what keeps a lot of women stuck in poverty, because they don't want the promotion, they don't want the raise, because they're going to lose more than what they gain.
Yeah.
So the resources aren't as limited. And again, you can have these resources for like 2 years, or so there's a time limit to that. And what do they need? They need more support that's not available to them. And that's the problem. That's why Renew Life Center was started, because it's not like the resources are available and they just don't have access to them. Oftentimes they're just not there.
Mhm.
And if they're there, they're punitive. And I think that it's such a beautiful opportunity for the church, who used to be the original social service agencies, right?
Right.
Back right before it was turned over to the government, to step into that role once again, to step into that role of being the social support, financial, spiritual, of course, and emotional, all the support that she needs. So it's a very limited life, and it makes you make choices that aren't that good. So when we see people making bad choices, we have to understand what leads to that choice. So you see a woman, well, why did she quit her job? Well, she quit her job because actually not working would be better for her to support her children. She'll have more food stamps, more rental assistance if she doesn't work than if she does. And it shouldn't be that way, right? It should be the opposite. They should be rewarded for doing better, right? But it's the exact opposite. And I think that the church can come up with a way to do that better, you know and yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
I think you're so right about that, because as the church, it's incumbent upon us to
Mm,
help the widows and the orphans and the mothers who are choosing life. And I think about the women who have chosen life over abortion and how difficult it is. Even if they do go out and get a job, then they have to turn around and pay for childcare, which is exorbitant. And then what
hmm.
happens if the child is sick and they have to take
Right,
time off work?
right.
I mean, it sounds to me like it's a domino effect, correct?
Absolutely is a domino effect. I've seen women go from doing well, having a nice paying job, a car, a nice apartment in a safe place, and just having the transmission in the car go, which was the first domino to go down, which made her constantly late for work, with a boss who wasn't very compassionate, which led to her losing that job, which led to losing the apartment. And you see how everything just rolls out of control, just because she had a car issue that she didn't have the money to fix.
Yeah.
So you know what, they're walking a tightrope. And this is the sad thing about it, is that they're literally walking this tightrope between, safety and just plummeting, everything just plummeting out of control. And that makes me feel really bad in thinking that, yeah, she made some pretty tough choices in life that led her there, but we also encouraged her to choose life, and which is a good choice, but now she finds herself in this position, and I think that it's not right for us to leave her alone in that,
Mm,
and not just for her sake, but for the sake of the baby. When you think
absolutely.
about, okay, we encourage this baby to come into the world. Well, what kind of outcome is this baby's life going to have?
Yeah. Mm, some hard situations that you're talking about. Friends, we're going to take a real quick commercial break, but I want you to stick with us, because when we return, I'm going to have Marisol share more about hope for breaking the cycle of generational poverty. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to your Hope-Filled Perspective, where my guest today is Marisol Rodriguez, and she is the author of the book Beyond Her Yes, Reimagining Pro-Life Ministry to Empower Women and Support Families in Overcoming Poverty. Marisol, you founded Renew
Mhm.
Life Center to fill in the gaps that exist after the 1 year of support typically offered at Pregnancy Center. After that ends, can you explain more about what these gaps are and how you personally seek to fill them to be a
Mhm.
model for how the church might be able to step in?
Yeah, the biggest gap is an educational gap.
Mhm.
And that's the education that they need that they didn't get at home. So it's, when we take our women through our workshops, which is really basic education that most middle class kids learn just by growing up in a middle class environment, they all say, why don't they teach us this in school? And I always tell them, well, they don't teach you this in school because they think you already have it. They think you're learning this at home. So when you don't understand the generational poverty background, you think kids are more equipped than what they actually are. So the first thing we do is fill in those gaps of education that they never got growing up. And now we're talking adult women that never got the basics. So we go there. Another gap is emotional support. I mean, being a single mom is daunting and it's scary. And just to think you're doing that alone, it's pretty overwhelming. So the gap of support of someone that surrounds you. We're very big on mentoring and assigning mentors that someone she could send a quick text to somebody for helping a parenting question, or she's filling out a job application question, just having that person that you could go to. And then, spiritual, we want these moms to know Christ. We want their children to know Christ. So and all these gaps that I'm talking about that we're filling is the perfect opportunity for us to share Christ. We're already being Christ to them, and helping them and reaching out to them. So it's the perfect opportunity when they often say, why are you helping me? Why are you doing this for me? That's the perfect opportunity for us to tell them exactly why we're doing this, what Christ did in our lives, and what Christ can do in their lives as well. So those are the three main things. It's an educational gap, and emotional support gap, and also a spiritual gap.
There's a saying that goes something like, people don't care what you have to say
Mm,
until they know you care. And so, what you
right.
were talking about is very practical ways to show
Mm-hmm.
people that you care, and then they're willing to listen. Just like you said, they'll
Right.
ask, well, why are you helping me? But that's an
Mm-hmm.
open door because you've met a need first. They know you care, then they're curious and they'll ask those questions.
Yeah.
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 You refer
That's a cool.
to pregnancy as a mission field. Will you unpack that
Yes.
statement a little bit?
Wow. I mean, it's such a huge mission field beyond just the baby part of it. So you have your pregnancy resource centers, which is a mission field, right? You have your sidewalk advocates that stand outside abortion clinics, trying to give women an opportunity to rethink their choice, right? Those are two. But beyond that, and it's strange is that most people say, well, you know what, that's not for me. I'm not going to stand outside an abortion clinic, and I'm not going to work at a pregnancy resource center. And I get it, it's not for everybody. But you know what is for everybody? What is for everybody is supporting each other, coming alongside. So, you know, when I say there's something for everybody, this mission field is so wide open. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, if you're a stay-at-home mom, just helping with parenting tips and advice, and helping a mom create a bedtime schedule for their kids, for example. Whatever you've done in life, it's a skill set these women need. So, and again, it's all coming back to leading women to Christ, right? So it's like as you help them in these very various areas of life, again, you're building relationships that hopefully will be long term, right? You're creating relationships, and you grow with each other. You're growing, and let me tell you something. We learned so much from the women we serve. It's not a one-way street. It's not. We're equipping them with things, and they are teaching us some things about poverty and life that we never imagined. So it's a two-way relationship. So it all comes back to, so education, mentoring, just doing the basics, opening a bank account, how to write a check. How about teaching someone as basic how to write a check, how to fill out, how to get a driver's test, helping them study for the driver's permit? It's just, it goes on and on and on. And I always tell people, everything you helped your 17-year-old teenager with in life, that's what these women need. That's exactly what they need. So no, you don't need a degree. You don't need any kind of special skills. You just need love and compassion and your basic everyday needs, everyday skills.
So what you're really talking about is being the hands and feet of Jesus.
Yeah, that's right.
Sometimes what we need most is just exactly what you're describing. It's a hand to hold. It's someone to look up
Yes.
to. It's a voice on the other end of the phone. It's an answer to a text message. It's just knowing we aren't alone in the fight. And that in and of itself gives us strength.
Strength and guidance and confidence. And I just had a conversation this morning with one of the women that we serve. And as they are transitioning from generational poverty to more of a middle class mindset, and they're finding themselves in more middle class environments, professional environments, meaning, a college campus or an office, a lawyer's office, a doctor's office. You're finding yourself in these professional environments. They don't know how to navigate them because they don't come from those types of environments. So it's almost like we become a tour guide for them. The woman that just called me this morning, she wanted to know how to handle a situation as someone who spoke to her in a way that what she said to me made her feel icky. Okay, so how do I handle that? How do I respond to this woman from a different world, that I am from? How do I respond to her respectfully? But honestly saying, hey, that made me feel very uncomfortable. And those are all little things that prohibit them from going further, from getting promotions, from getting ahead in life, because those are roadblocks. If you don't know how to handle the icky situations you find yourself and these new environments that you're navigating, you're going to back out. You're going to retreat and you're going to say, I'm not comfortable there because I don't know how to manage situations. So I tell women and men that volunteers that you're almost like a tour guide, of helping them navigate the professional world and overcoming the obstacles that they've never confronted before.
Well, and kudos to her for reaching out to you to say, I don't know how to navigate this and
Yeah,
ask for
and
help.
yeah,
Because that's got to be hard because a lot of these women, I would imagine, have asked for help and they've been turned away. So kudos to
yeah.
her for pushing through, acknowledging she didn't know how to handle it and knowing where to go.
Yeah, we stress that over and over that we're here for you for the long term. This is not a 1-year program, a 2-year program. As a matter of fact, the woman I spoke to, I've been mentoring her for 8 years.
Wow.
8 years, and she has gone from chronic poverty, chronic homelessness to now having like a middle management position, living in a home, so her life has transformed in 8 years, but she's still learning how to navigate these environments, and every level she moves up, it's a new set of skills that she needs and a new environment she's navigating. And we tell them we're here for as long as you need us. So
What a
keeps us busy.
ministry. It's a beautiful ministry. Now, you
Mm.
also talk about shifting the pro-life movement to the
Hmm.
pro-abundant life. I
Yes,
just
yes.
love that phrase. So, what's important for people to understand about this distinction?
Yeah, that phrase comes from Roland Warren, the president of CareNet, the National Pregnancy Association, and he came up with that phrase, and it just rang a bell in me because it denotes it's more about that pro-life issue. It's more about getting women to choose life. It's more than that. It's about finding or leading them to the abundant life in Christ, and it's spiritual abundance, really. And yeah, material abundance as well is nice. We're not against that, but we recognize that it's really the spiritual life that is the most important. And I found a study that showed that people in poverty that that have a faith, survive poverty far better than people in poverty without faith. So that tells me that. And I tell this to my donors, that listen, women knowing Christ is primary for me than them getting out of poverty. Because you could get out of poverty and still get involved in many sinful behaviors and not end up in heaven, right? We know that. So leading them to know Christ is far more important because even if they never make a step out of that poverty, their life is still better
Mm.
than and their children will have better outcomes. And that was true in my life. I mean, we were very poor, and I come from a background of families with no education, but my mother was a believer, and her really adhering to her Christian faith and leading us in that faith kept us from teen pregnancies, kept us from drug use, kept us from all those other moral issues you can fall into when you grow up in poverty, and it happens in everywhere too. But that my mother's faith kept us safe from a lot of things, which made our ability to get out of poverty much more easier. So yeah, being pro-abundant life is definitely, I think, the vision every Christian should have when it comes to this movement. Taking it just beyond that pregnancy, beyond that baby, into the spiritual realm and also the economic realm as well.
I think that phrase, the pro-abundant life, is going to stick with me. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Friends, we're going to take a real quick commercial break, but stick with us because when we come back, we're going to talk about some real practical things that we can do
Hmm.
to come alongside those who want to break the cycle of generational poverty. We'll be right back. Welcome back to your Hope-Filled Perspective. Today, we've been talking about breaking the cycle of generational poverty. Marisol, what are some practical ways the church can partner with impoverished mothers and provide hope?
Yeah, volunteering is the number one thing. Congregations, churches are filled with so many congregants, and we need, I will be bold and say we need every single one of them to be involved in some way or another. And so involvement comes in many ways. Of course, there's the financial involvement. Pregnancy resource centers and ministries like mine need financial resources to keep up with the demands of the women that we serve. And now that Roe v. Wade was overturned, that demand is even more, is even more. And in New Jersey, where things are getting very political and they're attacking pregnancy resource centers, the support is needed even more so. So there's the financial support and volunteers. Ministries operate so many hands make light work, right? I love that expression. And instead of having one woman or one volunteer that has 5 people that they're trying to mentor at once because there's a scarcity of mentors, just people stepping up from the church and saying, hey, you know what? I'd like to be a mentor. Or maybe say, hey, I'm a retired school teacher. I would love to facilitate your workshops. I would love to tutor women in getting their GED, or men or women who hey, I have a financial background. I would love to teach a budgeting class or help people make budgets and save money and get out of debt. There's just so many things. It's like when you think about your life and the needs you have, those are the same needs the women we serve have. And if you're a mom and you're good at parenting and teaching about healthy ways to discipline and nurture children. It's just, the church is full. It's so chock full of people with so many experiences and skills and love and compassion. And we just need them to step outside a little bit of those walls and know that there's a whole field of people out there that need you. I mean, I think there's nothing greater in the world than to feel needed, and there's women out there that need you. And let me say something else. Oftentimes women say to me, Marisol, I would love to volunteer, but I don't think they're going to connect with me. Like we come from 2 different worlds. And I'm like, you know what? I get it. I get your concern, but people respond to love,
Mm,
and if you
yeah.
come in with a loving heart and compassion, everyone responds to love. So I don't care what you look like. I don't care what your background is, you come in and people, and it's and the same women that tell me, I don't think they'll connect with me. I see them a few months later and, they have this bond with the women that they're serving. And it's beautiful. I love to see that. So we really need the church to just, to advocate for us, to support us financially, to promote volunteer opportunities. And there's so many, like I said it already, there's so many skills in those pews that we could use at these centers, at pregnancy centers, at Renew Life Center, and to change the lives. I mean, we're really transforming lives, and the transformation is not just that one mom and that one baby. The transformation is generational, because once you break that generational cycle, it's broken. It's broken. We broke it for my families. My children now are graduating college and have college degrees and going for masters. I mean, my mother didn't even go to school. So look at the big difference in just that one thing. And we, the church, have the ability to do that, and bring honor and glory to God through it, and also bring people to Christ. All of that. It's
Such a
great.
beautiful thing. So, Marisol, as we wrap up this episode,
Mhm.
if a listener is listening in on our conversation and resonating today, maybe they've come from generational poverty, or maybe they know someone who's there. What hope-filled perspective would you want to leave them with today?
Wow. you know, hope abounds, hope abounds. So if you're in need of hope, then I want to tell you that hope abounds, and you could find it in a church and scripture, and don't be afraid to ask. I think a lot of people, when they feel hopeless and they're from generational poverty, there's a sense of shame when you need to ask. And you know what? Shame comes from our enemy, the devil. It doesn't come from God. So the hope-filled perspective is, forget about shame. Shame doesn't exist. Go and get what you need, because the reason you're in the situation you are, I want to say, most likely is not your fault. Is not your fault. And that's what happens to us. And I think that it's very hopeful when someone can say, wow, I'm really in a hole here. I'm in a pit. But you know what? It's not all my doing that I'm here. It's okay for me to reach out and ask someone for help, and I've seen life transformed before my eyes, from deep hopelessness to hope and thriving and a beautiful future. So the perspective is, always think that you can make things better. Things can always be better, and that there's no shame in asking for help to make things better. And I think that once you do that, once you break that, you're going to see that life will change. I see it. I see it every day.
Marisol, thank you for sharing out of your own background and experience to help these women, but to help our audience understand that this generational poverty is a real issue, but that
Mhm.
as the church, we can step in and help to change lives. We can step in and be the hands and feet of Jesus
Yes.
to these women and their children, and to show them that there is an abundant life to be had.
Amen.
Friends, I thank you for listening in this week. I hope that there was something within this episode that has challenged you, that has encouraged you, that has renewed your hope. And if you know someone who is dealing with this, or if you recognize this need within your own church family, would you consider sharing this episode? Because Marisol gave some really important information and practical tips about how we as the church can be the hands and feet of Jesus. And there is no more beautiful thing than
Mm.
helping connect someone with the Savior of the world. Friends, we will be back next week with another episode of your Hope Filled Perspective. But until we meet again, it's my prayer for you that you have a hope filled week.